So we're
Sophia
aligned on the
Reyes
budget?
had survived
Yes, but
things
let's
that
review
would
the
have
timeline.
dismantled most
Good point.
people.
We need to be
She
flexible.
had survived
Agreed.
growing
Let's
up
move
in a
forward.
house where love was conditional and silence was safer than honesty. She had survived 3 years with a man who had a talent for making her feel like a problem he was generously tolerating. She had survived the end of that relationship, which Marcus Hale had framed as an act of mercy on his part, delivered with the particular cruelty of someone who wanted credit for leaving. She had survived the months after, the rebuilding, the slow and unglamorous work of learning to take up space again without apologizing for it. She was 31 now, and surviving had quietly become something else. Something steadier. She had her own apartment in Nashville, a job she was good at as an events coordinator for a boutique firm downtown, friends who answered the phone, and a life that was recognizably hers in every corner and detail. She had not arrived here easily. But she had arrived. She was also, at 5 months along, carrying a child. This fact was not visible to the casual observer yet, or so Sophia had believed. She was at the stage where she looked, depending on the angle and the clothing, like someone who had perhaps been eating well, which she had, because she was growing a human and had decided to treat the entire enterprise with the seriousness it deserved. She wore what was comfortable. She felt, most mornings, something adjacent to radiant, which surprised her because nobody had warned her that pregnancy alongside genuine peace of mind was a different experience than she'd expected. The father was a man named Nico Caruso. This was complicated in ways Sophia had spent 5 months carefully organizing in her mind. Nico was 38, the head of the Caruso family, which was not a term that required explanation in certain parts of Nashville and several other cities. He was not what the word implied to people who knew it only from movies. He was not theatrical or loud or decorated with obvious menace. He was precise, private, and conducted himself with the contained authority of someone who had never needed to prove anything to anyone, because proof had long ago become irrelevant. They had met at a charity auction 8 months ago, an event Sophia had organized professionally, and he had been the kind of person who made the room recalibrate without trying. They had talked for 2 hours in a corner while the auction proceeded without them, and he had been genuinely interested in what she said, which was not the most common experience Sophia had with men in rooms like that. What followed had been 6 months of something that defied simple categorization, not a relationship exactly, in the conventional architectural sense, but something real and chosen on both sides. When Sophia discovered she was pregnant, she told him directly, because she was not a woman who managed things around the edges. Nico had been quiet for a long moment and then said, with a precision that left no room for misinterpretation, that the child was his and he would be present, fully and without condition, for every year of that child's life. He said it the way he said everything, without performance, without qualification, as simple fact delivered from a place of complete resolution. Sophia had believed him, which was notable, because Sophia had stopped believing men easily several years ago. They were navigating what this looked like, practically and carefully, and Sophia was not afraid of the complexity because she had handled complex things before and because Nico, whatever else he was, had never once made her feel like a problem he was generously tolerating. She was thinking about none of this on a Saturday afternoon in October when she stopped at the farmer's market on 5th, a thing she did most weekends because the tomatoes were better than anything at the grocery store and she had developed, in recent months, specific and non-negotiable opinions about tomatoes. She was examining heirloom varieties with the focused attention of someone who took this seriously when she heard her name. She knew before she turned. There was a particular frequency to her name in that particular voice, the voice of someone who had said it dismissively and sarcastically and with the specific contempt of a man who needed to make the people around him smaller so he could feel the right size. 3 years of it had made her nervous system remember it before her brain processed it. Marcus Hale was 34, still handsome in the uncomplicated way he had always been, standing with a woman Sophia didn't recognize who was thin and highlighted and looking at Sophia with the sideways assessment of someone who had been told stories. "Sophia." He said it with the smile that meant something else. "Wow, look at you." She turned fully and met his eyes and said nothing, because she had learned that silence was not weakness when you were choosing it deliberately. His eyes moved down and back up and the smile did something specific. "You got fat," he said. Conversationally. Casually. The way you comment on weather. And then he laughed, the short, private laugh he used to share with himself at her expense, and the woman beside him produced a small uncertain smile because she didn't know what else to do. Sophia felt the old reflex, the pull toward smallness, toward apology, toward making herself less visible to reduce the size of the target. She felt it and she watched it and she let it pass through without landing. "I'm 5 months pregnant, Marcus," she said. Her voice was even and clear and belonged entirely to her. His smile shifted, recalibrated. Something flickered in it that was not quite embarrassment and not quite anything generous. "Oh," he said. "I didn't know you were." He looked around with the performance of casual interest. "Who's the—" He stopped. Because there was a change in the peripheral atmosphere of the farmer's market that Sophia felt before she understood it, the way temperature changes before weather arrives. She saw it register on Marcus's face first, a tightening, a reordering of his expression from casual dominance to something more careful and contained. Nico had not been supposed to be here. He had texted 20 minutes ago that he was finishing something across town. But Nico had a way of adjusting his schedule when instinct told him to, and whatever instinct he operated on had apparently told him something this afternoon. He came to stand beside Sophia with the unhurried ease of someone who existed inside a permanent perimeter of safety and extended that perimeter to whoever was beside him. He was in a plain dark jacket and he put his hand at the small of Sophia's back with the quiet, natural authority of a man who was exactly where he intended to be. He looked at Marcus Hale. He did not say anything threatening. He did not need to. There was a quality to Nico's attention when it settled on a person that conveyed, with complete economy, the full weight of who he was and what that meant. Marcus Hale was not a stupid man. He received the information being transmitted and his entire posture performed a rapid and involuntary adjustment. "Everything okay?" Nico said. To Sophia. Only to Sophia. "Fine," she said. Nico looked at Marcus for one more moment. Then he returned his attention to Sophia with the completeness of a man for whom Marcus Hale had already become irrelevant. "The tomatoes look good today," he said. "The heirlooms especially," she agreed. Marcus said something. That was technically a goodbye and left with a speed that was trying very hard not to look like speed. The woman with the highlights looked briefly at Sophia with an expression that contained, beneath its surface, something that might have been recognition, and then followed him. Sophia stood at the tomato stand in the October farmer's market with Nico's hand at her back and felt something she had been slowly building toward for 5 months settle into its final position. Not triumph. Not vindication, exactly. Something quieter and more permanent than either of those. She picked up an heirloom tomato and turned it in her hands and looked at it with the focused, serious attention of a woman who knew exactly what she was choosing and why. "He said I got fat," she said. Nico looked at her with the dark, steady eyes that had been watching her honestly for 8 months. "You're growing our child," he said simply. There is nothing in that sentence to improve. Sophia set the tomato in her basket. She bought 6 of them. She walked through the rest of the farmer's market in the copper October light with her basket and the father of her child beside her and the life she had built in every careful year after surviving. And she thought that surviving was underrated and also that it was only ever the beginning, and that the real work, the good work, was what came after. She was, she decided, very good at what came after.